Okay, before you get started on doing your three-step analysis and soapstone on the Declaration of Independence, a little bit of background and a kind of a way to think about this. So, um, you can think about the relationship between the 13 colonies in Great Britain before the War for Independence as an abusive relationship, where one partner holds all the power and the other one has very little chance of fighting back. So think of it this way. Great Britain's that partner who controls everything, wants to control everything, controls all the money, all of your money they take, and maybe let you have a little bit of spending money, but very, very little. They control who you talk to. They won't let you practice your own religion. They're the ones who invite their friends over, throw a big party, eat everything, destroy everything, and then leave you to clean it up. Control all of your actions and try and punish you if you step out of line even a little bit. So in that type of relationship, it's really hard for one person to get away from the other, which is essentially the Revolutionary War. And the Declaration of Independence is essentially a breakup letter, but it's not necessarily just to Great Britain. It's addressed to Great Britain, and it's being sent to Parliament and to the King, because the King is he's the abusive partner here. But it's more for the Friends. Okay, it's in this case the Friends are the rest of the world. The governments and the countries of the world at this time ran on colonization. So the major powers in the world, Britain, France, the Netherlands, Belgium, all of those places, they had colonies that they controlled. And the idea of a colony rising up and trying to declare independence and fighting for it was scary to them. So basically, American colonies are justifying to the Friends why they are doing what they're doing. And so this Declaration of Independence is very much written for those other countries to try and get them on their side. The American colonies don't have very much. They don't have an army. They don't have, they're farmers and craftsmen, and they're going to need help and supplies, which they end up getting mostly from France. But this is the first step in convincing France and other places that they're justified in what they're doing. So it starts. There's certain sections here. So this first one, it starts the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. Okay, this is basically the statement of purpose. We can look at it that way. Let's get a text box going here. Okay, it's basically saying we are going to tell you why we are breaking up with Great Britain. Okay, move this actually over here. Okay, so it says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands. So dissolve the relationship. You can think of political bands as the relationship. The political bands are the things that tie the colonies to Great Britain. And to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. Okay, so this is where they're basically saying, we are going to dissolve the bands, the bonds that tie us to Great Britain. We're breaking up with them. We are going to declare ourselves separate and equal. to the laws of nature and nature's God. Okay. Entitle them, A Decent Respect to the Opinions of Mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. So, the opinions of mankind, that's where it tells us that we are trying to convince people, the friends as you were, that what we are doing is justified, okay? So that in doing that requires they declare the causes which impel them to separation. So the reason why they're separating from Great Britain, okay? So, statement of purpose. Then we have the argument, okay? This is where they lay out the justification. So why we should be separate and equal. What in belief systems, what in society says that it's okay for us to be separate and equal. Because remember, up until this time, this is a time when we still have kings and lords who are ordained by God, and they're somehow better than everyone else. Societies are still run that way. So the idea that the rights of man, which we'll get into in just a minute, that people have inherent rights just by being born human beings is new. Okay, so the next section, like I said, is the argument. We hold these truths to be self-evident. And self-evident means that obvious. Okay, so I'm going to put a little comment in there. Obvious. So I know what that means, that all men are created equal. That is one of the founding ideas, okay? This is one of our founding idea. And it has to do with the rights of man, okay? Which is a philosophy that's new at this time. And it's based on the idea that basically what follows here, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, okay? Unalienable means they can't be taken away. Taken away. By the very fact that they are born, okay, they have these rights that can't be taken away. That among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Okay, that you have the right to live your life, that you have the right to liberty, which means to make your own choices. And then that third one, the pursuit of happiness, that's not actually the original language. The original language is money, essentially, and the right to make money, or it had to do with property, but essentially that you could make money. It was changed to be a little bit more fancy, a little bit more general. It didn't make us sound like we were just all out for, whatever we could make. So the pursuit of happiness is basically the right to earn a living / make money. Okay. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Okay, this is founding idea here. Okay, let's get that highlighted. And I'm going to make that pink. Because this is a new idea and this is a founding idea. This is what's called social contract theory. Okay, and it's the idea that people enter into a contract with a government. Essentially, people agree to give up certain rights or freedoms to the government. And in exchange, the government provides certain protections and services, essentially. So an example of this is we consent to be governed by our government here in the United States. We elect our representatives, we elect our president, we say, okay, we're going to allow you to regulate certain things. We're going to allow you to create and enforce laws to keep the peace. We're going to allow you to tax us to a certain degree. We're going to allow you to do this and to do that, which limits our freedom. So paying taxes, in a way, does limit your freedom because that money is yours, but you have to give a certain amount of it to the government. So then it's no longer yours. They're taking you. What you could have done with that, now they're going to do something. They regulate traffic laws. You can't drive 300 miles down the expressway because you'd be endangering other people. The government says, nope, we're limiting your freedom to drive as fast as you want. And in exchange, we're going to maintain the roads and make sure people are safe. With taxes, we're saying, okay, we're going to take a little bit of your income, but we're going to provide you with some basic services like, one would hope, roads, Social Security. When you retire, you have a basic income to fall back on, things like this. Okay, so we're limiting certain amount of our rights in exchange for the government providing services and protections. We're going to limit. The government's going to say, nope, you can't go around and murder anyone you want. Conversely, they're going to protect you from being murdered. So things like that, okay? That is social contract theory. We agree to give up certain rights. In exchange, the government will take care of things for us. The key there is the consent of the governed, okay? Without the consent of the government can't function, okay? Unless we agree to abide by its rules and its laws, the government has no power. And essentially, they're making the argument here, we didn't agree to be ruled by the king. We are getting no say. We are getting nothing back from this. He's broken the contract that says the government needs to protect our rights and protect us. They are not doing that properly. So therefore, we are taking away our consent to be governed by this government. Okay, social contract theory, very important. So he goes on to kind of elaborate on this, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, okay, we're going to go back to yellow, destructive of these ends, okay, that right there, when the government is no longer doing its job and instead is destroying the people, okay? The government no longer upholding its part of the contract and instead is destroying people, okay? It is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, okay? Alter or abolish. And notice, as you're going through here, pay attention to the words that are actually capitalized. They're capitalized so that there's emphasis placed on it. Rights of the people. They are stressing that the people have rights and that the current government under the king is destructive to the rights of people. So the rights of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So essentially, the new government will be laid out by the people in the way they feel is best. So establishing a new social contract with a new government. Okay. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes. Okay, so we're saying prudence. So we can't rush into this. We should never rush into overthrowing a government, especially ones that have been long established, so that have been around and have been working for a long time. Should not be changed for light or transient causes. So light or transient causes would be things that are petty, are little things, or transient means things that come and go. So like here in our country, laws can be amended, they can be abolished, new laws can be made. So the laws are generally considered transient. We get a new president every 4 years. We get new senators every 4 years. We get new representatives in Congress every couple of years. So their policies can be transient, meaning they can come and go based on who we elect. When you've got a single king, those rights and those laws and policies can be more long-term. Okay, so they're basically saying, no, I know the government has worked for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we shouldn't overthrow a government for something that's little or that, isn't a big deal or that will come and go. Okay. And then they go on to say, and accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. In other words, does mankind are predisposed to suffer while things are sufferable? People get complacent or get comfortable and just go along, basically. They don't act rashly and overthrow governments on a whim, okay? In other words, we tend to suffer quietly. As long as things are endurable, okay? And then they say, but, here's the but. Saying these things are true. Yes, we should overthrow government for light or transient causes. We should, people will just go along. They get comfortable. They don't want to cause problems, so they aren't going to fight back. But, and now they're going to say when that changes. But when the long train of abuses and usurpations basically is a way of saying taking away of rights. So this is the justification. Long train of abuses and usurpations, taking away of rights, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. An absolute despotism, okay? A despot is a kind of a tyrant, okay? And an absolute despotism means you're living under a tyrant and you have no rights. Okay. It is their right, meaning the people, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. And the guards here again is capitalized, meaning new rulers, okay? New government. So even though government has functioned for hundreds of years, for a long time, and we shouldn't get rid of governments for light or transient causes, and even though people will suffer as long as they can suffer, when there is a long train of abuse and taking away of rights, it is the right and the duty to throw off such government, okay? To get rid of the government, to break up with Great Britain and provide a new government for their future security. And now he's going to tie it back. He's going to say, this is what's happened now. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations. We're stressing that, okay? And he's stressing, hold on, that it's the King of Great Britain. Okay, now there is a parliament, and they're involved and they're ignoring us as well. But we're placing the blame on the king because we are royal colonies and we want the general people on our side. Alexa, stop. So we don't want... 9:50 a.m. Laura stopped on guest route Echo. Alexa, stop. We don't want the people mad at us in Great Britain. We want the general people in Great Britain to be on our side. So they're part of that friends that this letter is going to. So it's not just other countries, but it's the general population of Great Britain that we want to help us. So here it's the king's fault, not the people, okay? All having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. The king has done that. To prove this, let facts be entered. Let facts be submitted to a candid world. So a candid world is one that tells the truth. It's the truth the way it is, okay? States it plainly, essentially. So now they're going to lay out, this is the list of grievances. So what follows here is the list of grievances. And I probably spelled that wrong because I don't want to spell it. Okay, so list of grievances. You can think of this, the list of grievances, as kind of the list of all the ways he'd done me wrong, all the horrible things that this abusive partner has put you through. And it's the justification. So you've laid out, okay, here's what good government should look like. It should be based on human rights, on social contract theory. It should take care of the people. And then we've said, okay, yes, I know some of you are going to say you can't just overthrow a government that's worked for hundreds of years. But here is how they have not, or he has not fulfilled his role, his job in government, where the social contract has broken down. And these are all the ways, okay? And you'll notice they all start with he has, he has, he has. He is referring to the king, okay? Again, placing the blame solely on the King of Great Britain, okay? Now, you're going to read through these and you're going to do little summaries here as well, okay? And it's the largest section. And then we are going to get to kind of a summary of the argument, okay? We're going to tie back the grievances. Summary, tie the grievances back to the arguments made earlier. Besides this, okay. And here he says, in every stage of these oppressions, we, meaning the people of the colonies, have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Okay, so they're saying, we didn't just ignore all this and are just speaking up now, but instead we have repeatedly petitioned the government, petitioned the king um, to help to try and solve these problems before we reach this final stage where we're just going to break up. He says, our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. Okay? We keep begging, we keep saying, please stop doing this. Please do this instead. But instead of listening, they just keep repeating the injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. So he's saying we're not just, appealing to the king. We've talked to Parliament. We've talked to the people. We've told them that we're being abused, that the king's depriving us of our rights, and they haven't listened. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred. So basically, we're family. We are citizens of Great Britain, our families, and you have to keep that in mind. Part of the reason why we waited so long was that half the family may live in Great Britain and the other half may live in the colonies. Your brother may be in Georgia and in New York and you may live in London. So they say we have appealed to you as family, as fellow citizens, as men and women of Great Britain, and we've been ignored. Okay. So we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred, that's the family, to disavow these usurpations, remember that, the taking away of rights, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. So we're doing it. We're breaking up, okay? We've tried. Nobody's listening, and so we're done. So the second half of this paragraph here is essentially saying, it's heading off arguments, saying, well, some people might argue, well, have you tried to talk to them? Have you tried to work it out with your abuser? And you say, we've tried. We've appealed to everyone, and nobody is listening. It just keeps happening. Okay, so then we have the declaration. You've seen the way government should be, the basis of government, social contract theory, basic human rights, all of that. You've seen all the ways that he's done us wrong. We've tried everything. It just keeps happening. And then we get to the declaration. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, and that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. So we're breaking up. And that as free and independent states, they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Okay? And then we have the never-ending list of signatures. So, let me go down here. This is The declaration itself. We are no longer in a relationship. Let me resize this. With Great Britain, and instead are our own free country. Okay, with all the rights and responsibilities of being an independent country. Okay, so I've done essentially, spelled declaration wrong. There you go. I've done essentially most of the step one for you, the summary of what's going on. The only section that you're going to want to summarize is you're going to want to go back to the list of grievances. And you're going to want to look at these and say, okay, what is it that he's really doing? You don't have to do all of the, I would say pick 5, okay? Pick 5 to grievances, summarize, okay? And they can be any of the 5 that you want, but 5 of these individual he has, or 4, to tell us in your own words what this is saying, what the grievance is. So that's the last of the step 1 annotation that you have to do. You still need to do steps 2 and step 3. So you need to go through and you need to look for the appeals. Who is he appealing to? Is there some ethos in here by appealing to God and the laws of nature? Is there appeal to logos? Is there appeal to pathos, emotions? And then do the step 3, where you look for repetition and parallelism and other rhetorical devices. I will tell you, this is full of parallelism. It's full of repetition. So I expect to see those annotated. When you're done with this, go watch the next section of Hamilton and enjoy.